Sarah Chen wiped the sweat from her brow as she adjusted the humidity controls in her greenhouse. Today wasn't just another day tending to her prized orchids. It was humanity's first official botanical exchange with the Galactic Confederation. She'd spent weeks preparing for this moment, ensuring every plant was at its peak bloom. The diplomatic delegation was due any minute. Sarah straightened her gardening apron, brushing off a few specks of soil. Through the glass walls of her greenhouse, she could see the sleek silver shuttle landing in the designated area outside. Her greenhouse had been chosen for this honor because of its remarkable collection of hybrid orchids and its innovative sustainable design. Ms. Chen, a human diplomat, poked his head through the door. They're ready. The alien delegation filed in, their environmental suits gleaming under the greenhouse lights. Their leader, Ambassador Xiltoth, moved with the careful precision of someone entering a minefield. Behind them, Senior Botanist V8 consulted a device that looked like a cross between a tablet and a kaleidoscope. "Welcome to my greenhouse," Sarah began, trying to keep her voice steady. "I've prepared a special tour of Earth's most fascinating orchid species." The scream cut through the humid air like a knife. V8 had collapsed, their environmental suits' emergency lights flashing red. The device they'd been holding clattered to the floor, projecting holographic readings that spiraled across the walls. The other delegates rushed to their fallen colleague, chittering in their native language. "What's happening?" Sarah asked, taking a step forward only to be held back by the human diplomat. Ambassador Xiltoth's translator crackled to life. This is impossible. Your readings must be wrong." V8. The fallen botanists struggled to their feet, pointing a trembling appendage at Sarah's prized vanilla orchid. "Wrong. The readings are exactly right. Do you not see what's happening here? The chemical warfare, the ruthless competition for resources, the aggressive growth patterns." Sarah blinked. "I'm sorry, but those are just normal plant behaviors." "Normal?" V8 backed away from a hanging pot of pitcher plants. "There are over 3,000 species in this room, each fighting for survival. The air is thick with their chemical signals. They're communicating, competing, warriors in an endless battle for supremacy." The ambassador's environmental suit began to pulse with warning lights. The biochemical readings, they're off the charts. Every plant here is producing defense compounds, growth hormones, attraction signals. "Well, yes," Sarah said, growing confused. "That's how a healthy garden works. The plants form relationships, compete for resources, help each other out sometimes. It's a living ecosystem. And you just walk among them, manipulate their growth, force them to coexist." V8 had backed all the way to the door. "Do you have any idea what you're playing with? The biological power you're casually wielding?" Sarah looked around her greenhouse. At the orchids she'd carefully crossbred for more vibrant blooms, the carnivorous plants that kept pests in check, the carefully balanced soil ecology that made it all possible. Through their eyes, she suddenly saw it differently. A complex battlefield of biological warfare, with her as some sort of supreme commander. "I think," the ambassador said carefully, "we need to reassess our initial evaluation of human technological advancement. Any species that can casually maintain and manipulate such aggressive biological systems as recreation." They shuddered visibly inside their suit. "But it's just gardening," Sarah protested, gesturing to a blooming orchid. "Here, let me show you how the symbiotic relationship between the orchid and its fungal partners." The entire delegation backed away as one. "We will need to discuss this development with the Confederation Council," the ambassador said. "Immediately." They fled, practically running back to their shuttle. Sarah watched them go, still holding the orchid care guide she'd prepared for the occasion. Behind her, the greenhouse hummed with life. Thousands of plants growing, competing, thriving under her care. The human diplomat cleared his throat. "Well, that could have gone better." Sarah looked down at her soil-stained hands. "I don't understand. How can they be so advanced and yet so afraid of a simple garden. Maybe that's exactly why they're afraid, the diplomat mused. They've forgotten what it means to work with nature instead of against it. In her greenhouse, a new orchid bud unfurled its petals, oblivious to the interstellar incident it had just helped trigger. Sarah touched it gently, wondering what other simple human practices might terrify their new galactic neighbors. The diplomat's communicator buzzed. He looked at it and grimaced. The Confederation Council is convening an emergency session. Apparently, they're particularly concerned about something called community gardens. Sarah couldn't help but laugh. If her small greenhouse had caused this much panic, wait until they found out about botanical gardens. Or worse, garden shows. The incident would later be known as the greenhouse panic of first contact, and it was only the beginning of humanity's reputation as the galaxy's most terrifying gardeners. Mom, can I show them my garden? 10-year-old Emma Martinez bounced excitedly next to her mother's desk, where the latest Confederation news report was displaying holographic warnings about Earth's biological warfare zones. Rebecca Martinez sighed, looking at her daughter's dirt-smudged face. 2 weeks after the greenhouse incident, the galaxy was still in an uproar about human gardening practices. Honey, I don't think that's a good idea right now. The aliens are still a little sensitive about gardens. But that's silly. Gardens are amazing. Look what I grew. Emma held up a slightly misshapen tomato with all the pride of a first-time gardener. Rebecca was about to respond when her comm unit chimed. It was her wife, Diana, calling from her job at the Interspecies Communications Office. Her holographic form appeared, looking worried. Becca, have you checked Emma's Galactic Kids account recently? No, why? Her garden tour video went viral. In the worst possible way. Rebecca's stomach dropped. Like many children, Emma had an account on Galactic Kids, the new social media platform designed to help human and alien children communicate. She quickly pulled up her daughter's profile. There it was, Emma's amazing garden adventure. The video had over 2 million views, mostly from alien children and their horrified parents. Let me show you my garden. Video Emma bounced through her backyard garden. Here's where I battle the bad bugs that want to eat my plants. I use good bugs to fight them. Like these ladybugs. They're my tiny soldiers. Rebecca watched in growing horror as her daughter innocently described training her tomato vines to climb the trellis, forcing bulbs to bloom early in her mini greenhouse, and controlling the spread of her mint plants. And here's the coolest part. Emma demonstrated her composting bin. We take dead plants and turn them into food for new plants. It's like recycling life itself. The alien comments were a flood of panic. Human children are trained in biological warfare from infancy. They learn to manipulate life and death cycles as recreation. Their young can already control multiple species at once. Diana's hologram flickered. The Confederation Education Council is calling for an emergency meeting. They're concerned about Earth children's military training disguised as recreational activities. Military training? Emma looked confused. But I'm just growing tomatoes. Before Rebecca could respond, the House's eye announced, incoming priority communication from the Confederation Embassy. A stern-looking alien diplomat appeared in their living room, environmental suit gleaming. Mrs. and Mrs. Martinez, we need to discuss your daughter's educational activities. She's growing vegetables, Rebecca said firmly. It's a common Earth childhood activity. It teaches responsibility, science, and she speaks of warfare, control, manipulation of life cycles. The diplomat's translator couldn't quite hide their agitation. She commands insects as troops. Emma stepped forward, still holding her tomato. Would you like to try one? I grew it myself. The diplomat backed away so quickly they knocked over a potted plant. You offer me the fruits of your biological experiments. It's just a tomato, Emma said, taking a big bite to demonstrate. Still warm from the sun. The diplomat's suit sensors went wild. The child consumes her creations without fear, Such mastery of potentially toxic compounds at such a young age. Diana's hologram facepalmed. This is going to be a long day at the office. The video continued to spread across the galaxy. Alien children, both fascinated and terrified, began asking their parents uncomfortable questions about why they couldn't paint with flowers like human children did. Confederation child psychologists warned of the video's potentially traumatic effects, while a growing minority of alien scientists began to quietly suggest that perhaps they should study these fearless human children and their casual mastery of biological systems. Emma, meanwhile, had moved on to explaining her plans for a butterfly garden. "They're like flying flowers," she told the increasingly distressed diplomat, "and they start as caterpillars that dissolve themselves and rebuild their bodies into something new. Isn't nature amazing?" The diplomat's suit began emitting a high-pitched warning tone. Dissolve. Rebuild. At will. Oh, and wait until I tell you about my spider plant. It makes babies that hang in the air. The diplomat fled, their official report to the Confederation Council left unfinished on the coffee table. Rebecca picked it up, reading the title. Urgent. Human children's biological engineering programs require immediate investigation. Diana's hologram shook her head. At least she didn't show them the Venus flytrap. Emma brightened. "Oh yeah. Want to see it catch flies? It's so cool." As Rebecca tried to explain why that might not be the best idea right now, she couldn't help but wonder, how had humanity's most innocent hobby become their most terrifying feature in the eyes of the galaxy? The tomato, at least, was delicious. Dix 427 slipped through the shadows of the Confederation's Botanical Research Institute, their environmental suit set to stealth mode. The young xenobotanist's heart raced as they approached the forbidden research chamber. Inside, hidden from the Council's prying sensors, was their greatest secret, a garden. Not just any garden, a human-style garden. Small, carefully tended, and absolutely illegal. "Status report," Zix 427 whispered into their communicator. "Security drones are looping on previous footage," came the reply from Keth 19, their technology specialist. "You have 20 minutes. Zix 427 entered the chamber and activated the lights. Their experimental garden gleamed under the artificial sun, a mere dozen earth plants, arranged according to principles learned from encrypted human gardening documents. Tomatoes grew alongside basil, marigolds protected the vegetables from pests, and a small patch of clover fixed nitrogen in the soil. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. It was working. The symbiotic relationships are stabilizing, Zix 427 recorded in their log. Just as the humans predicted, the plants are supporting each other. Our traditional single-species hydroponic systems never achieved this level of efficiency. A warning light flashed. Someone was coming. Zix 427 dove behind a storage unit just as Director Ven 3 entered, flanked by security drones. The director's environmental suit gleamed with official markings. "The energy readings came from here," Ven 3 said. "Run a full-spectrum analysis." They stopped, encountering the garden. The security drone sensors went wild. "By the void," Ven 3 whispered. "It's true. Someone is performing human biological experiments." Zix 427 closed their eyes, waiting for the alarm to sound. Instead, they heard something unexpected. Wonder in the director's voice. "Look at the stability readings," Ven 3 said. "The nutrient cycling. The pest management. It's perfect. How is this possible?" Taking a desperate chance, Zix 427 stood up. "Because we've been wrong about humans, Director. They're not reckless biological warriors. They're masters of balance." Instead of calling security, Ven 3 approached the garden. "Explain." Over the next hour, Zix 427 revealed everything. The secret network of xenobotanists studying human gardening techniques, the promising results, the potential applications for failing Confederation ecosystems. Our worlds are dying, Zix 427 said passionately. Our sterile, single-species systems are collapsing. But look, they gestured to the tiny garden. Life supporting life, just as humans have known for millennia. This is heresy, Ven 3 said, but their sensors were fixed on the thriving plants. And yet, the chamber door opened again. Zix 427's hearts nearly stopped as Supreme Researcher Yalwan entered, the highest-ranking scientist in the Confederation. Director Ven 3, Yalwan said, "I see you found our little experiment." "Our experiment?" Zix 427 squeaked. "Did you really think your research network went unnoticed?" Yalwan's environmental suit hummed with amusement. "We've been watching, waiting for proof that human biological principles could be safely adapted." Ven 3's suit lights flickered in shock. "You sanctioned this." Unofficially, Yalwan approached the garden. "The Council fears what they don't understand. But we're scientists. We must understand. And what I understand now is that humans aren't playing with fire. They're conducting a symphony of life. The Council will never accept this," Ven 3 warned. "They will when they see the results." Yalwan turned to Zix 427. "How would you like to go public with your research? Under official protection?" Zix 427's suit lights brightened with joy. "You mean? It's time to show the Confederation what we've learned from humanity's gardeners, starting with saving Environmental Dome 9. Environmental Dome 9, the failing ecosystem that housed thousands of Confederation citizens. If they could stabilize it using human gardening principles. When do we start?" Zix 427 asked. "Immediately." Yalwan's suit displayed a new message. "Classified transport authorization to Earth. Your first task is to meet with a human expert, someone named Sarah Chen." Zix 427 looked at their tiny experimental garden, then at the authorization to study with the very human who had triggered the initial gardening panic. Sometimes, they reflected, the most terrifying things were exactly what you needed to learn. The garden's plants continued their quiet work, teaching ancient lessons to a species that had forgotten how to listen to life itself. The Confederation's primary food production facility, Alpha 7, was dying. Behind thick quarantine barriers, Lead Administrator Ren 5 watched as the carefully controlled hydroponic systems turned brown, withered by an aggressive plant pathogen that had somehow breached their sterile environment. "Production is down 60%. Their assistant reported. "The sterilization protocols aren't working. If we can't contain this, millions would starve." The facility provided essential nutrients for 3 populated systems. They tried everything in the Confederation Handbook, increasing sterility, introducing antifungal agents, even completely replacing the nutrient solution. Nothing worked. "Administrator," a junior scientist approached, trembling slightly. "The humans have offered assistance." Ren 5's environmental suit flickered with alarm patterns. "Absolutely not. Their biological manipulation techniques are too dangerous, too unpredictable." "But sir," the scientist pressed on, "they claim they've dealt with similar plant diseases before. They have something called integrated pest management FAT. That involves introducing more biological agents into our already contaminated facility." "Preposterous," the assistant's communicator chimed. "Sir, the Council has accepted their offer." Ren 5's suit lights went dark with shock. "What?" "Given the severity of the situation," the assistant read, "and the recent successful experiments in Environmental Dome 9, the Council has authorized limited human intervention under strict supervision." 3 hours later, Ren 5 watched in horror as a human agricultural team walked into their facility wearing nothing but light protective suits. Their leader, Dr. Maria Santos, carried a container that set off every biological warning sensor in the building. "What is D8? Ren 5 demanded. "Beneficial insects," Dr. Santos said cheerfully. "Ladybugs, predatory mites, some parasitic wasps. Don't worry, they're very good at their jobs." You're going to release more organisms into our facility. This is madness. Actually, Dr. Santos pulled out some seedlings. We're also going to plant these companion species. They'll help boost the immune systems of your food crops and attract the beneficial insects. Ren 5 watched in mute horror as the humans systematically violated every sterility protocol the facility had. They introduced flowering plants among the food crops. They released insects that immediately began crawling everywhere. They even added something called compost tea to the hydroponic solution. You're creating a battlefield. Ren 5 finally exploded. Our carefully controlled system was failing precisely because it was too controlled. Dr. Santos interrupted gently. Look, I know this seems chaotic to you, but there's a balance at work here. These insects will eat the pests that are spreading the disease. These companion plants will support the health of your crops. The beneficial microbes in the compost tea will outcompete the pathogens. But how can you possibly control all these interactions? We don't. Dr. Santos smiled. We just create the right conditions and let nature find its balance. That's what gardening is really about. Over the next few weeks, Ren 5 watched in fascination as the facility transformed. The brown decay began to recede. New growth appeared, stronger than before. The beneficial insects established themselves in a complex web of predator and prey relationships that somehow, impossibly, stabilized the entire system. Production didn't just recover, it increased by 40%. I don't understand, Ren 5 admitted to Dr. Santos one day. Our scientists spent centuries developing perfectly sterile growing conditions. We thought we'd achieve mastery over biological systems by eliminating variables. But you introduce more variables and somehow achieve better results. That's because you were working against nature instead of with it, Dr. Santos explained. Every pest has a predator. Every plant has companions that help it thrive. By trying to eliminate all other life forms, you made your crops vulnerable. In isolation, they had no allies when disease struck. Ren 5's suit sensors detected something unusual in their own biochemistry, a feeling they eventually identified as humility. Could you teach us more? Dr. Santos beamed. That's why we're here. Actually, we're planning to set up a demonstration garden in each major Confederation facility. Your staff should know how to maintain these biological relationships themselves. A garden? Here. Ren 5 was surprised to find the idea more intriguing than terrifying now. I suppose that would be educational. Exactly. And wait until you see what earthworms can do for soil health. Earthworms. As Dr. Santos enthusiastically explained the role of decomposers in healthy ecosystems, Ren 5 realized that what had once seemed like humanity's most frightening characteristic, their casual manipulation of complex biological systems, was actually their greatest wisdom. Above them, in the renewed facility, ladybugs hunted aphids, flowers attracted pollinators, and millions of invisible beneficial microbes worked to keep the system in balance. The Garden of Death, as some had dubbed it, had become a garden of life. And somewhere in the Confederation Council chambers, the definition of advanced civilization was being quietly reconsidered. Margaret Peggy Williams stood at her garden gate, leaning on her weathered oak cane, watching the anti-Earth protesters gather outside her home. Their environmental suits glowed with angry red patterns as they waved holographic signs. Stop Earth's biological warfare. And gardens equals death zones. Well, she said to her cat, Mr. Whiskers, who was sunning himself on the fence, this should be interesting. At 83, Peggy had seen a lot in her life. She'd survived wars, personal tragedies, and the loss of her beloved wife Helen 5 years ago. But alien protesters upset about her victory garden. That was definitely a first. The protest leader, a tall alien in an elaborately decorated environmental suit, stepped forward. This residential unit has been identified as containing one of the most aggressive biological manipulation zones in the sector. Peggy looked at her modest garden. The neat rows of vegetables, the herb spiral Helen had helped her build, the flowering plants that attracted bees and butterflies. Oh, you mean my garden. Would you like some tea? The mints fresh picked. The aliens recoiled in horror. You consume plants you've personally subjugated. Subjugated. Peggy chuckled. Heavens, no. I just tend them. Here, let me show you. Before the protesters could object, she had opened her gate and hobbled into the garden. To their shock, she bent down, joints creaking, and plucked a ripe tomato from the vine. See, she took a bite, juice running down her chin. Nothing subjugated about it, just sunshine, good soil, and a little love. But our sensors indicate over 200 distinct species in this small area. The biochemical warfare signals alone. Oh, you mean how the marigolds help keep pests away from the vegetables, or how the lavender attracts pollinators. That's just nature's way of helping everyone get along. She pointed with her cane. Rather like that fancy diplomatic council of yours, just more efficient. The protest leaders' suit sensors were going haywire, but curiosity seemed to be overtaking fear. You speak as if these organisms are collaborators. Of course they are. Here, help an old lady up these steps, and I'll make you some tea. Real tea, mind you, not that synthesized stuff you folks drink. To everyone's surprise, the protest leader found themselves following the elderly human into her home. The other protesters watched in confusion as their leader sat at a kitchen table while Peggy puttered around, preparing tea and cookies. These cookies, she explained, setting them out, are made with lavender from my garden. Helen, that was my wife. She loved them. Used to say they tasted like summer sunshine. The alien suit carefully analyzed the cookie before they took a bite. Their suit lights flickered in surprise. This is pleasant. Life usually is, when you stop fighting it and learn to work with it instead. Peggy sipped her tea. You know, after Helen died, that garden saved me, gave me a reason to get up every morning, reminded me that life goes on, changes, grows into new forms. The protest leader's suit lights had shifted to a softer blue. You speak of this biological manipulation zone as if it were healing. Garden, Peggy corrected gently. And yes, it heals, it teaches, it connects us to the cycle of life itself. Would you like to learn how to plant something? Our species has not directly touched soil in 10,000 years. Well then, Peggy stood up, reaching for her cane. It's high time you remembered how. Come on, I'll show you how to plant snap peas. They're Helen's favorite. We're Helen's favorites. The galaxy watched in amazement as footage spread of the notorious anti-Earth protest leader learning to plant peas in an elderly human's garden. Their environmental suit was smudged with soil, but their lights glowed with an entirely new pattern, one that xenobiologists later identified as wonder. By sunset, the protest had transformed into an impromptu gardening class. Peggy sat in her old wooden chair, sipping tea and giving instructions as formerly terrified aliens discovered the simple joy of putting seeds in soil. You know, she told Mr. Whiskers as the aliens left, clutching small pots with their very first plants. Helen would have loved this. She always said gardening was the best way to make friends. The protest leader, now proudly holding a pot of sprouting peas, paused at the gate. Elder Williams, thank you for teaching us that not all power is meant to be feared. Peggy smiled, watching the sun set behind her beloved garden. Come back next week, she called after them. Those peas will need harvesting, and I've got more cookies to bake. In her garden, the evening primrose began to open, releasing its sweet scent into the twilight air. Another day, another lesson in humanity's most peaceful art of war, growing things with love. The Grand Gallery of the Confederation Capitol had never seen anything like it. Where sterile holograms and crystalline sculptures once stood, living gardens now bloomed, each one a carefully orchestrated symphony of growth, color, and life. Maya Chen, lead artist of the Earth delegation, and Sarah Chen's cousin, adjusted the moisture levels in her centerpiece installation, a Japanese-inspired moss garden that seemed to defy gravity, with tiny waterfalls creating music as they fell through delicate ferns and flowering vines. "They're not coming in," her assistant whispered, nodding toward the gallery entrance. A crowd of aliens had gathered there, their environmental suits displaying patterns of anxiety as they stared at the living exhibitions. Maya straightened her back, brushing soil from her hands. "They'll come." Art has a way of breaking down barriers. As if on cue, a small alien child broke away from their parent and darted into the gallery, suit lights flickering with excitement. "Look, the colors are growing." The child was pointing at Maya's favorite piece, a vertical garden designed to bloom in waves, creating moving patterns of color throughout the day. Right now, morning glories were closing while day lilies opened, making it appear as if purple waves were transforming into golden ones. "Careful," a child's parent called out. "Those are active biological agents." "Actually," Maya said gently, approaching them, "they're flowers. Would you like to learn how they dance?" The child's suit lights brightened. Plants can dance. In their own way. Maya led them to a special section of the installation. "See these vines? They're called morning glories. They follow the sun across the sky, dancing to the light. And these," she pointed to some touch-me-nots, "dance when you sing to them." To demonstrate, she hummed softly. The vibrations caused the sensitive leaves to fold up, creating a ripple effect through the plant. The alien child made a sound that might have been a gasp of delight. Can I try?" Other aliens were cautiously entering now, drawn by the child's obvious excitement and lack of immediate biological disaster. Maya watched as they discovered each installation. The butterfly garden where earth insects fluttered through alien flowers, creating unprecedented hybridizations. The bonsai forest that told stories through carefully shaped growth patterns. The living wall where plants spelled out poetry in multiple languages, changing words as different species bloomed and faded. "This is not what we expected," admitted a Confederation art curator, their suit displaying scholarly interest patterns. "We thought Earth's biological manipulation would be aggressive, militant, but this is what gardening has always been about," Maya finished. "The art of working with life to create beauty." More alien children had gathered around the touch-me-not display, experimenting with different tones and watching the plants dance in response. Their parents' suit lights had shifted from anxiety to curiosity. "Could we?" One of them started hesitantly. "Could we learn to create such things?" Maya smiled. "That's why we're here." She gestured to a workshop area where human artists stood ready with soil, seeds, and small pots. "We're offering classes." The response surprised everyone. Within hours, the workshop was full of aliens learning the basics of plant care. Many had to be taught how to modify their environmental suits to actually touch soil, something their species hadn't done in generations. "Look," the first alien child was showing their parent a tiny succulent they had planted. "I made life." "Arranged life," their parent corrected anxiously. "Under controlled conditions." "Collaborated with life," Maya suggested. "That's what gardening really is, a collaboration between human creativity and nature's own artistry." As the day progressed, more aliens arrived, drawn by news of the strange new exhibition. Many came expecting to be horrified by displays of humanity's biological manipulation. Instead, they found poetry written in flowering vines, music played by falling water through living plants, and art that grew, changed, and invited participation. In one corner, a group of alien artists was already discussing plans for their own living installations. In another, children learned about photosynthesis by watching color-changing plants respond to different light wavelengths. "You've started something remarkable," the art curator told Maya as sunset painted the gallery in warm hues. "Our species has spent millennia trying to separate ourselves from biological processes. But this makes us want to reconnect." Maya watched an alien child carefully watering their first plant, their suit lights glowing with pride. Sometimes the best way to overcome fear is to create beauty together. Outside the gallery, word was spreading through the capital. The humans' biological art wasn't a weapon. It was a bridge. A bridge built of growing things, connecting species that had forgotten they too were part of the great dance of life. The living exhibitions would eventually tour every major Confederation world, leaving behind not just art, but a renewed understanding of what it meant to create with nature rather than against it. And in their wake, gardens began to grow in the most unexpected places. The emergency alert echoed through the Confederation Council chambers. Planetary ecosystem collapse on Nexus 9 has reached critical levels. Evacuation protocols initiated. Dr. Sarah Chen, now the Confederation's chief botanical advisor, studied the holographic displays with growing concern. Nexus 9's artificial environment had sustained its population for over 1,000 years. Now, despite their advanced technology, it was failing spectacularly. The atmospheric processors are operating at maximum capacity, reported Supreme Engineer Cole 2. The synthetic nutrient cycles are destabilizing. We've tried every technological solution in our archives. Sarah watched the statistics scroll past. Oxygen levels dropping, artificial pollination systems failing, synthetic soil losing viability. Millions would have to be evacuated if they couldn't stabilize the system. Have you considered, she said carefully, that trying to control everything might be the problem rather than the solution? The council chamber erupted in worried murmurs. An elderly council member's suit flashed warning patterns. You suggest we apply Earth's chaotic biological principles to our most advanced engineered ecosystem. I suggest, Sarah countered, that an engineered ecosystem is a contradiction in terms. Life isn't meant to be controlled. It's meant to be guided, balanced, allowed to find its own equilibrium. Like a garden, said a familiar voice. Zix 427, now the head of the Confederation's Biological Integration Department, stepped forward. Just like what we did in Environmental Dome 9. That was a controlled experiment. Someone protested. This is an entire planet. Actually, Sarah pulled up new holographic displays. Earth is proof that planetary-scale gardening is possible. Our ancestors spent generations learning to work with natural systems instead of trying to control them completely. She showed them images of Earth's restored ecosystems, reforested deserts, revived oceans, restored prairies. We had to learn this lesson the hard way too. We almost destroyed our planet trying to control nature. It was only when we remembered how to garden, how to work with life instead of against it, that we began to heal our world. The council's eldest stood, their ancient environmental suit humming with age and authority. What exactly are you proposing, Dr. Chen? Sarah took a deep breath. A complete paradigm shift. Instead of trying to maintain artificial control over every aspect of Nexus 9's environment, we introduce carefully selected Earth species to create self-sustaining ecosystems. We teach your people to be gardeners instead of controllers. The risk, someone began, is less than the certainty of collapse if we do nothing. Zix 427 interrupted. Look at the data from every world that's adopted Earth's gardening principles. Every single one has shown improved environmental stability. The chamber fell silent as real-time footage from Nexus 9 played across the walls. Artificial forests were browning, engineered crops failing. 1,000 years of trying to improve on nature through technology was unraveling. How long? The eldest asked finally. To prevent complete collapse, we need to start immediately. Sarah gestured to her team, a mix of human ecological engineers and alien botanists. We've already drawn up preliminary plans. We can begin introducing primary species within days. And your people will teach ours. Show them how to garden. Sarah smiled, remembering her own greenhouse and the panic it had once caused. Every human child learns to garden. Your people can learn too. In fact, she paused, considering, I know a remarkable 83-year-old teacher who would be perfect to lead the educational program." The council deliberated for what felt like hours. Finally, the eldest spoke. "The council approves implementation of Project Garden on Nexus 9, effective immediately." What followed was the largest coordinated ecological restoration project in Confederation history. Ships from Earth arrived carrying seeds, seedlings, and soil samples. Human gardeners worked alongside alien scientists, teaching them to read the language of growing things. Peggy Williams, brought out of retirement specifically for this project, set up gardening classes for every age group. The secret, she told her alien students as they learned to plant their first trees, is to remember that we're not in charge. We're just helpers in life's grand dance. Gradually, remarkably, Nexus 9 began to change. The rigid lines of engineered forests softened as biodiversity took hold. Pollinators buzzed between earth flowers and alien plants, creating hybrids that had never existed before. Soil that had been sterile for centuries came alive with microorganisms. "It's working," Zix 427 reported 3 months in, their suit lights glowing with joy. "Oxygen levels are stabilizing. The new ecosystems are self-regulating. It's beautiful." Sarah stood in what had once been a failing atmospheric processing station, now transformed into a thriving forest. Above her, alien children were learning to climb trees for the first time in their species' history, their environmental suits specially modified for the experience. "We're not just saving a planet," she realized. "We're teaching a civilization to fall in love with life again." Around her, Nexus 9 bloomed. Proof that sometimes the most advanced technology is knowing when to let nature take the lead. The first intergalactic garden show transformed the Confederation's capital into a celebration of life itself. Where sterile corridors had once stretched between climate-controlled buildings, now open-air gardens flourished. Environmental suits had been modified to allow direct contact with soil, and aliens of all species mingled with humans among the exhibits. Sarah Chen, now in her 70s, sat beside her old friend Zix 427 in the judges' pavilion. Below them, the next generation of gardeners presented their creations: hybrid plants that combined Earth and alien species, new techniques for establishing ecosystems on different types of worlds, and gardens that told stories of cooperation between species. "Remember when you fainted in my greenhouse?" Sarah asked, eyes twinkling. Zix 427's environmental suit flickered with embarrassed amusement. "I was young and foolish. Though in my defense, you humans are rather terrifying with your casual manipulation of life." "We prefer to call it collaboration now," Sarah corrected, watching as a young alien demonstrated their prize-winning technique for establishing Earth-style pollinator gardens in low-gravity environments. The exhibition grounds were packed with visitors from across the galaxy. Near the children's section, Peggy Williams, now a Spree 93, was teaching a group of alien youngsters how to plant their first seeds. Their environmental suits were cheerfully smudged with soil. "Look at this entry," Zix 427 pointed to a remarkable display where Earth vegetables grew alongside alien fungi in a perfect symbiotic relationship. The student combined principles from both our worlds to create something entirely new. The student in question was Emma Martinez, now a respected cenobotanist. Her childhood garden video, once a source of panic, was now used as a teaching tool in Confederation schools. "The Council wants to officially designate humanity as the gardeners of the galaxy," Zix 427 mentioned casually. "They're preparing to entrust Earth with the responsibility of helping restore damaged ecosystems throughout Confederation space." Sarah watched as Maya Chen's latest living art installation drew gasps of wonder from the crowd. A garden that responded to emotional patterns in alien environmental suits, blooming in symphonic patterns that reflected the collective mood of its viewers. "We've come a long way from being seen as biological terrorists," Sarah mused. "You taught us to stop fearing life," Zix 427 replied. "More than that, you taught us to love it again." They watched as a group of alien scientists excitedly discussed their latest project, using Earth gardening principles to restore their homeworld's long-lost wilderness. Their environmental suits, once designed to separate them completely from nature, had been modified to allow them to feel the wind, touch leaves, and yes, even get their hands dirty. In the demonstration area, Dr. Maria Santos' team was showing off the latest developments in space station gardens, self-sustaining ecosystems that could support long-term deep space missions. The technology combined human agricultural wisdom with Confederation engineering in ways neither species had imagined possible before. There's talk of establishing a Galactic Gardening Academy, Zix 427 said, a place where species from across the galaxy can learn to work with life instead of against it. Would you consider being its first director? Sarah smiled, watching an alien child carefully water their first Earth rose while a human child learned to tend an exotic alien bloom. I think it's time for the next generation to take the lead. Look at them. They're not afraid of each other's differences. They're curious about them. As if to prove her point, a small alien child ran up to their judging table, environmental suit glowing with excitement. Elder Chen, look what I grew. In their tiny hands was a perfectly formed tomato, just like the one Sarah had offered to alien diplomats so many years ago. But this time, there was no panic, no fear, just pride and joy in the simple miracle of helping life grow. Well done, Sarah said, her heart full. Would you like to learn how to save the seeds for next season? The child's suit lights brightened with delight. Around them, the garden show continued its celebration of the once terrifying, now beloved art of working with nature. Human children taught alien friends about butterflies, while alien children shared the secrets of their own world's unique flora. In a quiet corner of the exhibition, a special display honored the memory of Helen Williams, Peggy's wife, whose love of gardening had helped bridge the gap between species. The garden there bloomed with earth roses and alien flowers growing together, proving that love, like life itself, finds a way to flourish in the most unexpected places. You know, Sarah said to Zix 427 as they watched the sun set over the transformed capital, I think this is what gardens have always been about, bringing different forms of life together, helping them find harmony, creating beauty from diversity. Above them, the stars twinkled, each one potentially holding new worlds to garden, new life to understand, new ways to grow together. The galaxy had learned to garden, and nothing would ever be the same.